Welcome to the Reddit Chronicles. Today we will be reading from Am I the Jerk? Our first post is by Throwaway. Am I the jerk for telling my niece it's her fault that my horse kicked her? I, 27F, have a niece, 14F, who is my older brother's 36M, and his wife, 34F, daughter. She's a very sweet girl and she loves my horses and the other horses I board, which are my friends. My brother and his wife live in the city, while I live in my uncle's ranch on my mother's side in a different state. My brother and I have different moms but same dad. They sent my niece to come stay with me for a few months, which I greatly accepted. She's been good and she calls her friends back at her home state and FaceTimes her parents once in a while. She's a great help with feeding my animals and my horses. The only problem is she doesn't know how to ride horses and sometimes teases the horses. I have two very young horses, a filly and a colt, which are very excited horses, and I don't really allow her in the field with them, as they like to kick and buck even when people are around. And I have an old stallion, which was my first horse my uncle got me. His name is Rooster, and he is 32 years old. That is my niece's favorite horse. She always wants to ride him. But I don't allow anyone to ride him, and I don't ride him no more. He's very patient and kind, but he doesn't like anyone touching his back legs and his tail when you walk behind him. He will kick, but when he knows you are there, he doesn't mind being touched back there as long as anyone approaches him in the front. Overall, he's a great horse. She will tease him with a lunging whip by tickling his back legs and his tail, trying to get him to kick. I have told her numerous times and warned her. She still continues to do it behind my back. Well, I told her to go get Rooster out of the pasture and into his stall. She went to go and get him, and I heard a scream in the barn. I got over there, and she was holding on to her leg crying in pain while Rooster ran back to the pastures. I asked her what happened and she said Rooster had kicked her left thigh, and I asked her if she touched him on the back legs or his tail. She said she pushed him on his tail to get him in his stall, and that's when he kicked her and ran off. She started cursing about Rooster and doesn't want to be around him. I told her it's her fault she provoked him, and for not listening to me after so many warnings. I told her that bruise on her leg is a lesson now to be careful around bigger animals, especially ones that can kick at any moment. She can walk it off, and she called her parents after. They called me and told me that it was my fault for not supervising her, and that they're gonna get her home. I told them everything but they won't listen, and my sister-in-law told me I need to get rid of Rooster. I told her no and hung up. Now I am wondering, am I the jerk? Our next post is by Alarmed Advance. Am I the jerk for asking my sister-in-law to pay me for the cost of hair and skin oils she threw out? I, 32F, and my husband Alex, 34M, have allowed my sister-in-law Julie, 34F, to stay in our house due to her soon-to-be ex kicking her out after filing for divorce. Julie still has her job but doesn't want to go through the ordeal of getting a new apartment while dealing with her soon-to-be ex, and we didn't want her to have to stay in the hotel during that. I'm Indian, and Alex and the rest of his family are white. I feel like that may be relevant to what happened here. I use oils for most of my hair and skin care. I also use chemically manufactured products, but I found that it's better for my hair and skin. That's also how my mother cared for me when I was younger. Julie disapproves of this and thinks that I'm just going around town an oily and greasy mess, despite me repeatedly explaining why I do this to her. She's tried to convince me to switch to all chemical products she uses, but I politely decline each time. When I woke up today after sleeping in with Alex, I walked into our shared bathroom and saw the case of my oils was not there. I looked further around the bathroom to see where it could be and asked my husband if he had moved it. Alex said no, and that's when I went into the living room and asked Julie about the case. Julie gave me a smirk and told me that she had woken up early this morning and took my case out of the bathroom to drive to the other side of the community we live in and dump it into the garbage bin there. I was tired and thought she was joking until Julie bragged about it, saying that she did me a favor and that I wouldn't have to use such uncivilized ways of taking care of myself. Once her words sunk in, I was pissed and called Alex into the room to explain to him what she did. Alex seemed disappointed, but not surprised about what Julie did, and told her what she did was disrespectful. Julie tried to defend herself, saying that she only did what she thought was best and it shouldn't be such a big deal. I cut her off, saying that I wanted her to give me $76, which was the cost of the oils, so I could replace them. Julie got nervous and said she was in a tight spot financially, so she couldn't pay me back right away. I said that was fine, but I expected her to pay me at some point. My mother-in-law just replied with, "That's different. before telling us that I should apologize and then hanging up. Edit. My mother-in-law and father-in-law are paying for Julie's hotel and apparently are going to do so until she comes back to our house. Our next post is by OK Oak. Am I the jerk for telling my aunt to keep her gifts since my kids couldn't care less about them? I have 2 toddler sons. They're just like any other toddler and are pretty self-absorbed. Currently, one adores cars and the other loves the color red. Toddler 1 won't play with anything but cars and toddler 2 will only play with red toys. My mom hosted a party the other night and one of my aunts came. She bought a bunch of gifts for all the kids. The older kids were respectful and accepted their gifts, but my son simply glanced at the toys, noticed they weren't cars or red, and moved on to something else. I thanked her for the toys and made a joke about how unpredictable toddlers are after realizing that she looked upset, but she rolled her eyes and said, "That was rude." I told her that they're toddlers, and she said, "So, my kids knew how to say thank you by the time they were 3. I told her that they can say please and thank you, but they're still learning." She made a noise and said, "Learning to be rude." I told her she was being a little sensitive and that they're literally babies. They don't even understand the concepts of being rude or ungrateful. She got annoyed and said, "Fine then, don't expect any more presents after today," and that she hates entitled parents like me who are blinded by their children and think they can do no wrong. I said whatever and told her she could keep the gifts she bought for today since my kids couldn't care less about them. She got all red in the face and said now she knows why the boys are so rude, but I just grabbed the kids and my husband and left. I was extremely angry at the moment, but now I'm just in disbelief. Who gets offended by a toddler? My mom says my aunt is very upset with me and is threatening to uninvite us from her Christmas dinner. Aunt is hosting this year, unless I apologize and promise to raise my kids better. My mom thinks we're being ridiculous and I should just say sorry, but I said no. Am I the jerk? I just can't wrap my head around why she's so angry. Edit. First, to be more specific, the boys just turned 2. Second, I feel I made this clear, but I apologized and thanked my aunt before anything else. The boys had already run off to their dad and were preoccupied with him by the time I got to my aunt, so dragging them over and trying to maybe get a thank you out of them felt like a waste of time for all of us. I'm not saying she isn't allowed to feel hurt, but she didn't have to say all those things about my kids. I've explained this in the comments. People still think I'm in the wrong, but a few people are saying to include it anyways. The boys don't really speak. Yes, they're 2, and I'm sure your 2-year-old niece or nephew can speak several languages, but my sons barely say mommy and daddy sometimes. It's not something concerning, but I didn't think it was worth the time to drag my kids back to me and my aunt and get them to say thank you, which they won't even acknowledge me until about 10 minutes in, and then they'll just stare. Sometimes I can get a noise or sound out of them, but I figured my aunt had better things to do than wait that long. I sincerely believe that there was no reason for her to get so angry, but I understand that I was wrong and will apologize. We won't be attending her Christmas party though. Thanks for all the comments. I appreciate the nice ones with constructive criticism. Our next post is by Live Study. Am I the jerk for taking the money my grandparents saved for college and agreeing with them that my half-sister isn't their grandkid? I will try to keep this short. I am 18 and when I was around 10, my mom cheated on my father and got pregnant. This resulted in my half-sister Kathy. Soon after, my parents cut my grandparents out of our life. My parents stayed together. I turned 18 3 months ago and my grandparents reached out. They informed me over lunch that when Kathy was born, they made it clear they do not see her as a grandkid, that she is the product of my mom cheating on her son. They refused to make a college fund for her and my parents cut them out due to it. They informed me that I have a college fund from them and I decided to take it. I came home and kept it to myself. I have been reconnecting with them and it came to a head today. My parents learned who I was hanging out with, this resulting in an argument for taking the money when they shunned Kathy. I told them they were right to not consider her a grandkid and to screw them for cutting them out of my life. They haven't talked to me since and I am doubting myself. Since it was asked multiple times, Kathy's bio dad has partial custody. My dad never adopted her, which according to some Redditors means that bio dad has to give up his rights. Down in the comments, Curious One writes, it's pretty clear that the grandparents couldn't get over the affair and would have ignored Kathy and possibly mistreated her out of spite. Come on, we all know grandparents like that. These grandparents sound particularly opinionated. Not the jerk for OP rekindling his relationship when he turned 18, but he should definitely have talked to his parents about it and got their side of the story first. then listened to his grandparents, then made up his own mind and set his own boundaries. I also don't know why he didn't tell his parents that they should be glad about this, because now they won't have to pay for his college, which will give them more time to save and more ability to help Kathy in her turn. This actually makes their family financially stronger. The grandparents didn't have the moral duty to make the huge commitment of a college fund for a step-grandchild. They did have the obligation to be kind to Kathy and to recognize her as a part of their son's family and to make some effort to treat her, if not equally, in things such as attention and birthday gifts, as someone in their lives worthy of some love and recognition. We cannot know, unless the parents weigh in, but it seems likely that the grandparents, upset at their son's choice, made their declaration regarding Kathy in such a manner as to make OP's parents believe they couldn't even meet these lesser duties of kindness. Thank you for listening to the Reddit Chronicles. Follow for more content.